We saw them in so many close games and able to get that win, but that was not the case for Super Bowl 59. And as we kind of alluded to, not a lot to debate in this one. It really was lopsided. The Eagles dominating Super Bowl 59. Kind of seemed like, Isaiah, we've seen them beat themselves almost in this one. And Akbar, I think you kind of mentioned it, that this game really from start to finish was just Eagles, Eagles, Eagles.
Yeah, it was. And it started up front, too, in the trenches with Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat, I thought, easily could have been the MVP of this game if it wasn't for that last-minute, effort for Jalen Hurts. But, 2.5 sacks. He created a lot of pressure. He caused an interception as well. And I look at the way they dominate that offensive line, especially on that left side where there's Tooney and Caliendo. There was issues on that side, and it just kept popping up. But, of course, we know those guys were playing out of position, so to speak. But Josh Sweat, outstanding performance. Then I think the other part to this is the fact that I think we can put to rest that the game was rigged for the Chiefs and that we weren't talking about the refs doing this. Early, we saw the Chiefs get a couple of calls go their way. And then after that, they were just playing ball. And I think that's what I really, really enjoyed because I was getting tired of that narrative that the refs were somehow favoring the Chiefs.
Yeah, I keep coming back to the roster.
Yeah.
This Philadelphia roster was just more dominant. And you hear, Travis Kelce talking about, this is the worst that we've executed. I don't know if it came down to execution. I just think that they had better guys than you guys. And you're not used to losing, and that's okay. And I respect that. But football comes down to scheme and matchups. And when you have equally yoked schemes, right, on both sides of the ball versus, Kansas City and Philadelphia, great offensive coordinators, great defensive coordinators, then when those guys are up there calling those plays, who does it come down to? It comes down to the guys that are on the field. And you just talked about in the trenches. You said Josh Sweat should have been MVP. I think Jalen Carter should have been MVP because Jalen Carter is the one who allowed for Josh Sweat and allowed for Milton Williams to go out there and have those one-on-one matchups and get 2 sacks, get 2.5 sacks, because you have to double team Jalen Carter. So they put Kansas City in a position where they had to pick their poison. Do you want to stop Jalen Carter or do you want to stop the rest of the guys? Well, if you double team Jalen Carter, my guys are better than your other guys and they're going to get one-on-one matchups and win. On the offensive side of the ball, they stayed true to the run. Yeah, you want to take away Saquon Barkley? We'll still run the ball 45 times. We only have to put it in the air 23 times because we have a Dotson, we have a A.J. Brown, we have a Goddard. Those guys are going to win their one-on-one matchups. This came down to my guys being better than your guys. Go back, stack your roster, try again next year.
You talk about the roster. That's Howie Roseman's responsibility as the general manager, and he gets his flowers a lot. But know who doesn't get his flowers?
Who's that?
Nick Sirianni. Remember in 2021 when he was hired, same offseason as Dan Campbell. And, of course, Dan Campbell had that soundbite where he talked about biting kneecaps. So that is the memory of that offseason. But remember, Nick Sirianni had a bunch of press conferences where he's fumbling over words, not very articulate at the podium, a lot of criticism before he even coached a game.
Yeah.
And then they started off 2-5. And then the Eagles rallied. They made the playoffs that year. The next year, they go to the Super Bowl before losing to the Chiefs in Super Bowl 57. So now they have all the expectations going into 23, and they live up to it the first half of the season. They start off 10-1. What did they do last season? They collapsed down the stretch. And now Nick Sirianni, we're talking about the Super Bowl appearance the year before. Now he's on the hot seat. They start off 2-2 this year. Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelce, no longer in that locker room this season. Where's that leadership coming from? They steady the ship. Yep. Nick Sirianni has that team winning 12 of 13. There you see him getting that respect, that admiration, the Gatorade shower from A.J. Brown. We talked about how they were yelling at each other earlier in that game. You saw him yelling at coaches earlier this season. He yells at the crowd, but they win. And we look at the first 4 seasons in NFL history. He trails only George Seifert in terms of wins through the first 4 seasons of a head coaching career. And remember, George Seifert inherited Bill Walsh, Joe Montana, and that 49ers dynasty to win those 57 games. Nick Sirianni has won 54 games, second most all time through the first 4 seasons, has 2 Super Bowl appearances, and now a Super Bowl championship. He'll go down now in Philadelphia sports lore for being a head coach to take the Eagles to a Super Bowl champion, and now they're set up for years of success.
You should never have to buy a drink in Philly. I know New Orleans theme here, maybe a second liner. How about a parade in Philadelphia in a couple of days? How does that sound, Eagles fans?
Let's go.